Hi, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and welcome to the Susie Homesteader channel. And today we're going to talk about one of the more important subjects, and that is health. And I am going to give you what I call Mom's Sick Kit. And this is all kind of about preventative medicine, which is, you know, more important than getting sick and then trying to get better. So one of the most important things you can do for fitness and health is to just have some of these things on hand. I'm also going to have another video for you in the future coming up called Still Room Supplies. And what a still room used to be in the old days was something more along the lines of a distillery room. But, you know, as time went on, people kind of updated that into something called a still room, which kind of meant more along the lines of just having all these ingredients and products and materials that just kind of needed to be on hand, as opposed to running to a doctor's office, because back then sometimes getting to a doctor in time wasn't actually going to work out. So since I'm kind of out in the boonies too, I like to have a lot of things in the house for whatever reason all the time. So these are some of the key things that I keep in the house and eventually in my still room when I get it complete, and I'll have that video for you. But these are just, again, things to help maintain your health and focus on sickness on more of a preventative measure. So we're going to talk about it in a couple of different formats. The first one, of course, which my kids have been told over and over, is more so just personal hygiene, because it all kind of has to start with that. And then we'll talk a little bit about our environment, and then we're going to talk about some of these great products that I have that I like to keep on hand. So you might want to get your notebook out, because there's lots of things to talk about. And again, like I said, I'll have some more videos for you kind of that goes into these subjects a little bit more in depth. But today, again, we're just going to talk about the more important things that I like to have. So number one, personal hygiene. So you remember your mother and your grandmother and everybody else telling you guys to wash your hands. Well, you still got to do that. So once those kids walk in the door from school or any other little germ factory that they've been in all day long, send them straight to the bathroom, because most of those germs are going to come right off their hands. So, you know, these days they have this hand sanitizer, which this didn't even exist, you know, when I was a little kid. But it's still great to have, and it's good to have in the bathrooms, good to have in their backpacks, in the car, you know, anywhere, anytime that you can get this on their hands when you think they've been exposed to lots of germs. So that is still a great product to have. So hand sanitizer is a good one. Second one, Lysol. My mother had this when I was a kid. It smelled horrible. I swore I would never use it again, but they have come out with much better smells, orange smells, and all kinds of good stuff in the same product of Lysol. Again, I swore I'd never use it, but I guess we all become our mothers. So there it is, Lysol. You know, spray the clickers, spray the keyboards on the computer, refrigerator door handles, phones, cell phones, anything that you can think of that get touched nonstop. You know, obviously toilet handles and doorknobs, all that good kind of stuff. And this does kill stuff on the surface, and some of it airborne. So obviously, you know, about, I think, more than 75% of our germs are airborne anyway, which a lot of people forget about. So besides personal hygiene for them themselves, we're also going to spray anything that they have touched. So, and the second part of that is just make sure that they are not touching any orifices on their bodies. It's hard to mention that without laughing, but, you know, that also includes not rubbing their eyes or sticking their fingers up their nose and all that good stuff, because, you know, the second that germ enters the body, which would be through some orifice on the body, it's kind of a done deal. So again, just tell them, you know, no sucking thumbs, none of that stuff. You know, just keep their hands away from everything when they've been outside all day or anywhere else that has germs in it. So there's a couple of them. And then hot tubs. If you have a hot tub or you have a giant garden tub or a big bathtub, don't put your kids in that when they're super sick. I know that doesn't make any sense, but sometimes the dehydration from the heat of that kind of a steam is more damaging than them just being clean. So if they're clean already, you're okay. I mean, if your kids need to take a shower or bath, obviously that's got to be done. But one mistake that I used to make is going into a hot tub every time I was really sick, especially if you're congested and you need that kind of a steam. That is a good, the steam is a good element for when you're sick, but not to that degree, because if it dehydrates you more than it's worth, then you're going to wind up sicker anyway. So dehydration is a huge problem for most people. Most people are dehydrated most of the time, so you definitely don't want to do more of that when you're ill. So obviously drink tons of water, which everybody tells you to do when you're not feeling good also. But just don't push it with the heat, any form of heat, because that just wears you out and can sometimes make you a lot sicker. And then, of course, the obvious stuff like don't be overweight, don't be underweight. There are reasons why you need a little extra fat storage on your body for when you're sick, and that is in case you're eating and you're throwing up and you can't eat for a week. So some of that extra fat that you carry around is there just for that purpose. If you don't have enough fat on your body for those rainy days and sick days when you can't eat, then you have problems again. So, your weight is super important by the time you get sick. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, exercise every chance you can when you're not sick, because you have got to sweat, sweat, sweat. And that you can only do when you're feeling good. There's a lot you have to do while you're healthy, so that when you do get sick, you're just not as sick. So, of course, just keep personal hygiene really in mind. Of course, you want wherever you're living and breathing to be clean. But some of the things that people don't think about too much is some of the bigger issues like clean air, clean water, clean food, clean soil. I'll have a whole nother video for you guys on environmental hazards, which encompasses quite a bit. That's a big subject. But there's things like radon gas and magnetic electricity that we don't think about. Lots of things to talk about. And some of them are chemical, some are physical, and some are biological. Hazards that we just don't take into consideration. But a lot of those things can certainly not help your immune system and just kind of, tax your immune system that we don't even think about. So we'll talk about that another day. But along with some of those environmental hazards that you absolutely want to avoid, there's just some everyday stuff. Foods that you just have to avoid, like sugar, white sugar, all kinds of white ingredients that, again, there's a whole book about white death. Sugar is absolutely one of them. Salt is another one that goes into the white death category. Any kind of salt, too much of that. Alcohol, of course, being a huge one. Drugs, smoking, anything that you know for a fact is bad for you. And even too much coffee. Caffeine, it's also considered an astringent and can absolutely dehydrate you and deplete a lot of the nutrients that you put in your body. So, of course, I love all those things that we just talked about, but, they're all done in moderation. So even coffee, all these monster drinks that are just super caffeinated, just so bad for you because it's just in excess. So, I'm going to tell you over and over, everything in moderation, or just forget it altogether if you can. And certainly smoking and the obvious things that you have got to avoid every day. So anyway, there's three ways that we're going to kind of break this down into. Number one is things that you can inhale. Secondly will be things that you can ingest, and then things that you can topically absorb on your skin. So there's three ways to kind of deliver the kinds of things that we're going to talk about today into your system. And we'll talk about the things that you are going to ingest first. And these are just a whole group of things that we're going to go through one by one. Of course, water. Nothing is more important than water. Our bodies are 75% water. So every day, if you can drink 8 glasses of 8-ounce glasses of water every day, 8 times a day of 8 ounces, that's a lot of water. That's way more water than most people even think about. And then if you drink too much water, you're going to be flushing out all the other good stuff and the vitamins and minerals that you're putting in your body. So there is a balance to water. There's also certain waters that are more pH balanced. There are some pH test papers that these are kind of more to test your own personal pH, but they also make kind of a litmus test like this in a dropper form to test your water to see what the pH levels are. And what that means is that you don't want it too acid and you don't want it too alkaline, even in your water, as well as your body, because your body has to have a balanced level of pH in alkalinity or acidity. So we're talking about that also in terms of the kind of water you're drinking. Now, there's a lady that did a little test on the internet that I was watching with about 10 or 12 different bottled waters, and some of them were terribly balanced with pH. So there are some better bottled waters as well. And then, of course, your own tap water you're going to want to get tested also. So, you know, water. That goes right in with sweating. So super important elements here for preventative medicine. And then there's 3 rules that I kind of go by in terms of how to deprive your body of things. It takes 3 minutes to die from a lack of oxygen to your body. Okay, it takes 3 days to go without water for the most part. And it takes 3 weeks to go without food. So that number 3 rule kind of gives you an idea of which one of these elements is the most important. So obviously your air is super important. You know, and then water being second on that list and food being last. So, and then of course sunlight. You know, you can go without sunlight if you are providing enough vitamin D to your system. And then we'll talk about that in a second, because there's ways, of course, to create artificial light if you're lacking sunlight. So you can go without sunlight, which in this part of the Rockies, sometimes we can go, you know, for 4 months without enough sunlight just because of our long, dark winters. And they do get very dark here. So I have a couple little tricks for that too. But the key to your immune system is obviously having all 3 of those elements as much as you can. And of course, clean air being far more important than you think. So there's a couple things that I like to do just in my house in particular to keep the air really clean. Number 1, keep all your windows cracked, or some windows cracked to some degree or some level, just so that you have a constant flow of fresh air, which is the obvious. And then, you know, even having some ceiling fans put in just to circulate the air that might get trapped in your house. Again, I'm going to do this other video for you about environmental hazards and gases that can be trapped in your house, but we'll talk about that later. But besides the gases that can be trapped in your house, obviously germs, you know, are very airborne. So what I like to do is either with a kettle on a wood stove or an air diffuser, which you can buy, or a vaporizer, particularly like when your kids are sick. I like to put in a eucalyptus oil in my air, which it's an essential oil, and it's strong, but it has a lot of antiseptic qualities to it, antibacterial, antifungal. Eucalyptus oil, I put it on my wood stove kettle all winter long, off and on. So the kids have all known this smell since the day they were born. But that's a great one for cleaning out the air. So there's one oil, and tea tree oil can also be used. It's all kind of the same properties as eucalyptus oil. But you can look that up and find out which oils are better for germ killing factors. But there's 2 of them. So tea tree oil and eucalyptus oil. Like I said, I put those on the wood stove kettle all winter long, especially when we have to have the windows closed. So those are 2 good ones to keep on hand in terms of oils. There is a great book that, besides my essential oils book that I use a lot of, but this is one that I just bought by Dr. Furman. It's called Super Immunity, and they talk about all kinds of stuff in here. You know, besides just the foods not to eat and the foods to take, it talks about oils and herbs, you know, vinegars, you name it, all kinds of different methods for, again, delivering some of these things into your body besides just what you eat. So great book, lots of good information in there. Lots of stuff I'm talking about today actually came out of this book. So, but there's great books out there on the internet, and I'll have a list of those for you on my website, and then also with my shopping link. If you're pregnant or nursing, or you have very serious health concerns, a lot of this stuff you may want to research in a little bit more depth. So there are some of these things that, especially if you're pregnant, that you absolutely don't want to take while you're pregnant. So please keep those considerations in mind before you try any of this stuff. Even eucalyptus oil can be just way too strong for a baby's nose. So you may want to not use that when you have little tiny babies in the house. So, you know, again, take your own health into consideration before you do any of these things, because this is really based on people that are already healthy and just trying not to get sick. So if you have real specific health conditions already, you have to do a little bit more research than maybe what I'm telling you. So anyway, so there's a couple things to consider in terms of your environment. And then one thing that I have that I did spend a little extra money on, this is called the light therapy system. And you know, this one's like 10 years old. So there are actually like tabletop versions of this now that are not as expensive as what I paid 10 years ago for this. But I've had this for a long time. It's a light therapy machine. It's delivering some of those things that we talked about that you get from actual sunlight in an artificial form. It's not a tanning bed, it's not the UV rays, it's a different kind of a light. So again, do some more research on that if you're interested in this. But they also call these sad lights. They treat people with depression or lack of sunlight with these machines in doctor's offices. I've always just had one because I know what a great benefit it is for us in the winter times when it's dark and we're just not getting enough light. So again, if you have the money to invest in this, even if it's just a tabletop version of it, these are great to have. I am a huge believer in this light therapy system. And again, they don't all look like this. They come in many, very many different forms. But nice to have when you're lacking sunlight and the vitamin D and the vitamin K that you have to have in your environment as well. So there is just a few ideas there in terms of your personal hygiene and the environment that you're living in. So let's go through again some of my formulas that I like to have on hand. And then, of course, we were just talking about essential oils. And again, there's another great book for that. I'll have that on my shopping link for you. I use a lot of oils. And some of those are just in the form of a coconut oil, which coconut oil has a ton of benefits. This is kind of a trendy thing. It just kind of became more popular. I put it in my coffee every morning for lots of reasons. But there's just very basic oils like this that can also be ingested and used topically for, well, coconut oil can be used for tons of stuff, but this is a great one to have. And again, you can look up all the benefits of that if you need to. But besides just oils in general, essential oils are another super important component of your cabinet, of your at-home kind of medicine cabinet. This is oil of oregano. I use this for everything. Antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. I used to take this before I go to Mexico just so I wouldn't get Montezuma's revenge. So, but this can be ingested. It can be used topically. You can put this one on top of your wood stove as well. You can inhale it. And then this one works best sublingually. So some of these oils, again, you have to do some homework on because some of them you cannot put under your tongue and have them absorbed through the veins under your tongue because it's too extreme. But some of them you can. And then, again, you got to really do a little bit more research on your essential oils because some of them have to be diluted with a carrier oil if you're putting them on topically. And this is apricot oil, and this is something that I like to dilute all of my essentials oils with because if it's not diluted, you have to at least dilute it 50-50. So you'd have 50% of a carrier oil and 50% of that oil. This particular oil of oregano is already diluted, so sometimes you can buy them, you know, diluted already. So just be very careful with these. These are super, super potent, but they do work. And I probably use essential oils more than I use any other product at all. And there's tons of them, and they all have different properties and different benefits. So, but oil of oregano is my favorite one for colds. And then another thing you can do topically while we're talking about that, some of these, like the tea tree oil, you know, you can actually kind of take that on a cotton swab and put that up in your nasal area. to keep germs from being inhaled through your nostrils, which is a way to go. But I don't particularly like the smell of this tea tree oil. So if you're real sensitive to smells and some of this stuff is too strong for you, there's another little trick that I do. If I know I'm going into a really sick room full of people, I put a little Neosporin in my nose. And I know that sounds crazy, but again, it's a antibiotic just suspended in a, you know, an ointment. But I know a lot of people that do this, especially doctors and nurses. They'll put this in their nostrils before they walk into a room full of sick people. I have done that. It has worked. And even when I've had sinus infections or even just like little things like, you know, nasal polyps that people get and that kind of stuff, little Neosporin in the nose is not a bad idea. So again, something to think about. Or again, like I said, you can use an essential oil for that, because that's stopping a lot of the airborne germs from getting past your nose while you're breathing it in. So that's a great tip. And then, of course, one of your more common things that you want to do in your environment is just make sure it's allergy free. Now, even if you're not a very allergic person or you don't even have an allergy to anything specific, there's enough allergens in the air and in the world that it can still suppress your immune system. So for example, in my house, I do have one kid that's allergic to cats, so we don't have cats in the house, period. But even if I had somebody that was slightly allergic to a cat or dog hair or some kind of pet dander, that would even suppress their immune system as well. So we do have some dogs in the house, but for the most part I have no cats in the house because they're the most obvious choice for allergies. I also got rid of all my carpeting, I got rid of my curtains, and any other kind of heavy duty material or fabric in your home that would hold those allergens, even if it's just from allergens blowing in through the doors and the windows from outside. I have as few linens other than bedding, you know, and towels and stuff like that in the house as possible. We went with shutters. I built shutters and I took down all the curtains. So anything that can absorb allergens in your house, you know, excess blankets, couches that haven't been vacuumed, all that kind of stuff is another thing to really think about. In terms of the air that you're breathing and the allergens that could be even almost invisible that are suppressing your immune system. Okay, so, and then let's talk about some of the topical things that you can use on your body, which did include these essential oils. So, assuming they're diluted, these essential oils, like I said, there's so many great ones out there. There's some designed just for helping you breathe better when you're sick, which again we're talking about with allergies and stuff. There's oils designed for just boosting your immune system. It's a combination of oils. So there's some really good ones out there. And again, I use that quite a bit. And that you can rub on your feet. You can rub it on your wrists, your temples, you know, whatever you want to just get that kind of getting into your bloodstream. But essential oils are great for the immune system. Let's see. And then we talked about the light therapy. And then, of course, real sun. You know, the winter times here, like I said, they get so dark that when the sun comes out, we all run out to the sun and sit out in the sun for a little while. And you have to do that because you're going to get your vitamin D and your vitamin K like that. Of course, you want to have sunscreen on, but the oilier your skin is, or some kind of, again, a carrier oil that you have without getting a sunburn, while you're in the sun is one of your best bets to get some of those nutrients. So when the sun comes out here, I make my kids go sit on the porch on a chair and just sit in the sun, you know, without getting burned, which you can still do in the middle of winter. But sun, you know, again, if you don't have, just get out there the first chance you get if you do not have some kind of artificial light like we talked about. So again, okay, so let's talk about ingesting, besides inhaling, some of these other products. And again, you can ingest essential oils, but again, you have to be careful with how much. I do know some people that have taken this oil of oregano and it gave them heart palpitations because it is really heavy duty. Some people this doesn't affect at all. So again, you can ingest certain essential oils, but you have to be careful with that too. And then of course, you know, your coconut oil you can ingest also. So let's move on to spices and herbs. So we're getting out of the essential oils now. Turmeric is another big one that's coming up in the world here for all kinds of antioxidant properties. Again, this is kind of another one of those products that they're finding lots of benefits from. And you can look those up as well. So turmeric would be a spice. If you could even turn that into a tea if you wanted to, or put that into some form of a food, you know, like a spice that you'd cook with. But people have been using this to cook with for a long time, but now they're finding other things to do with it. So turmeric, that's another great one, antioxidant, and also immune boosting, particularly immune boosting. Good old green tea. So if you're not going to do it in a spice form, you could do it in a tea form, you know, some other kind of an herbal form in a tea. Green tea, great antioxidant as well. Or you can actually buy a capsule. You know, this is a great one that I like, Ultimate Immunity, which is a combination of herbs in a capsule form that you can just swallow. So there's another way to get herbs that have all kinds of great immunity properties into it as well. So going down the line here, now we're going to go into, we're getting out of the herbs category, we're going to go into vinegars. Apple cider vinegar. I talked about this in a couple of my other videos. I did a video on wheatgrass juicing, and again, apple cider vinegar is right up there. It will balance the pH levels in your body, something very underestimated and very important. And again, that goes back, you can buy these little pH strips that you can put under your tongue to determine exactly how acidic or how alkaline you are. Super, super important, because none of this stuff is going to work if your pH balances are off. So apple cider vinegar is the ticket right there. It's horrible, but but we do it. So you have to have some apple cider vinegar. I don't care how bad it tastes. Okay, and then a second one. Now we're going to go into having just good bacteria besides your body pH. I have two products I use. I just do an acidophilus capsule, and then they make a powder for kids because my little ones won't swallow anything in a pill form. So if you can sneak some of this powder into their juices or their yogurt or something like that, that's a great way to get the good bacteria into their bodies that they have to have. They have to have that intestinal flora to kill the bad bacteria. So this is the good bacteria that you have to have in your body, especially before you get a stomach flu. Trust me, you don't want to get the stomach flu without this kind of stuff in your system. So you got to have both of those. So acidophilus is another one. There's another little trick to kind of keeping your body cleansed and detoxified, and that is chia seeds. So this is actually, I don't have the bottle for some reason, but these are chia seeds, and I think it might even have some flax seeds in it as well. But this is kind of equivalent to what the old psyllium husks used to do, where it's just kind of cleaning out your colon and getting rid of all the junk that's left in your body. That's also slowing down your metabolism and killing your immune system. So we still have to cleanse and detoxify as we're going along here, no matter what you're putting in your body. But seeds and nuts are something super underestimated these days. Try and get as many seeds and as many nuts into your body, particularly cashews, which also have some great immunity boosting properties in it too. So seeds and nuts, that's another one. And then here's my other favorite, and again, I talked about this one in my wheatgrass juicing video. This is a raw organic green superfood, and this is where you're going to get your chlorophyll. And if you're not eating enough vegetables, this is the ticket right here. So since I just don't make enough vegetables, and most people probably don't, I try and get whatever kid I can to take this, to take it. It's kind of right up there with the apple cider vinegar. It's a tough one to get down, but super important. It's your greens, it's your chlorophyll. This particular one has all kinds of great stuff in it. And if you want to take it one step further, like I said, go to my wheatgrass juicing video, and wheatgrass juice is as good as you can get for oxidizing your body, an antioxidant, and also your chlorophyll. So you still have to get your greens in somehow. So if you don't have enough, get some of this powder, you just put it in water and you're good to go. So there's another powder that's super important for you. And then another powder that I like to use as opposed to a vitamin or a capsule is vitamin C. We always have this emergency on hand because if it's in a powder form, it's just going to get into your body faster than it will in a capsule. So I try and do a lot of things in powders, and especially with kids, because a lot of kids just won't swallow vitamins or mineral supplements. I know obviously they make a chewable vitamin C, but this powder one has a lot more benefits than just the chewable vitamin C. So this is a good one to have, especially if you think you're getting sick, because you just got to get that vitamin C in there. And most people don't get enough of that either. So there's a good one to keep on hand. Vitamin B12. Don't drink a coffee, don't drink a soda, don't eat a candy bar. Okay, just go get these little vitamin B12 packets, take a couple of those. It takes a little longer to kick in, you know, than a cup of coffee, but much healthier way to get your energy back when you're tired. So I try and get some of them, including myself, to take this instead of drinking that other cup of coffee, because this is a much better way to go than caffeine. And then another last but not least product that I like to have on, and this is calcium. Calcium magnesium is what it is, mostly magnesium. Again, magnesium has tons of great properties. This is a good one for sore muscles, obviously, but it's also one for keeping people asleep, or trying to keep people, you know, to get their 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night, which is absolutely critical. So if you're not getting enough sleep, or you're having problems sleeping, or your kids, you know, just aren't getting enough magnesium, there's another powder form, and this Calm plus calcium is one of my favorites, and it doesn't really taste that bad. But that's another one that kind of misses the boat on a lot of minerals and supplements. So we kind of covered most of these products here. And then, you know, vitamins and mineral supplements are always good to have. I do take those twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, and the kids do it as well, whether it's chewable or in a gummy vitamin. But, you know, we can't rely on our whole foods and our raw foods to have the kind of nutrients that they used to have in them in the past. So unfortunately, our foods are depleted of a lot of those things. So if you can get it out of your food first, great. But if you're concerned that you're not getting a quality food, then vitamin supplements are a great thing to have. Of course, organic food, if you can afford it. It is expensive. You know, I try and do that as much as I can. But I also grow a lot of my own fruits and vegetables, which is another alternative. Raw foods, and then 3 really important foods that you just have to get in your diet, and I know they're yucky and the kids don't like them, but that is onions, garlic, and mushrooms. There's all kinds of great links now with mushrooms and fighting breast cancer. Onions and garlic, you know, garlic is just amazing for your immune system, and then onions is also a great one for cardiovascular health. So many benefits from these 3 little foods right here. So if you can just, everything else you eat, if you can cook with garlic, onions, and mushrooms as much as possible, get those into your foods as often as possible and as much as you can. And unfortunately, you have to hide a lot of that to make kids eat it. Mushrooms are definitely not happening with my kids, but I can sneak a lot of garlic and a lot of onions and stuff in stuff without them even knowing it. So 3 super important foods, as well as just your quality foods. You know, and then of course some people even resort to enemas, colon cleansing, coffee enemas. You know, there's lots of kinds of ways of going about that. I personally am never going to do that, but that is another way to, another form of cleansing your body or detoxifying your body is enemas. So I guess really the biggest question of all is how to get all of this stuff in your body as often as possible, which is a constant challenge for me and my kids. You know, some of this stuff you just have to get it into your system weekly, some of it you'll have to do it daily, and some of it's just not going to happen unless it's on a monthly basis, because there's just too many things to do to your body with this many ingredients. So it is kind of a challenge trying to find a way to kind of schedule how you're going to do all this preventative medicine. But just, you know, do it any chance you can. And again, everything in moderation. You don't want to do too much of anything, of any of these things, no matter how good or how preventative they are for you. An example of that is this oil of oregano. It's just an amazing product, but it will kill, since it is an antibacterial, it will kill a lot of the intestinal flora in your body. So unfortunately, if you take too much of this product, you're going to have to take more acidophilus because it's killing off a lot of that gut flora. So again, everything in moderation. I can't say it enough. And then, of course, we have just the real serious issues of today, which include our diseases other than viruses, bacterias, and parasites. You know, diseases we have in America in particular, cancer, heart disease is the #1. Of course, cancer being coming up in the ranks here everywhere. Blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, allergies, and just germs in general. They're just all increasing as Americans. I cannot stress enough to you guys to breastfeed your children. That will eliminate a lot of the allergies your kids have for the rest of their life. True believer in breastfeeding. And then, of course, stress being another #1 killer, particularly in America. So again, besides moderation, this is all about your mind, body, and soul. Trying to combine all 3 of those into your life, or take those into consideration in your life every day. You know, stress, again, you just have to find some little happy place in your life to control as much of that as possible. And of course, today we just talked about the kinds of things we can do with your body. So the only other thing you can really help yourself out with is laughter. Laugh as much as you can. That's the best medicine for your soul. And try not to take all of this too seriously. But it's all super important. And again, you know, take your notes, go get some paper. These are just a couple of things you can do here and there. And if you go into any health food store anywhere in your neighborhood and ask, hopefully somebody who knows a lot about what's in there, they'll answer a lot of questions for you. But spend some more time in your local health food store if you can. And hopefully that will help you from getting a lot sicker. Or, you know, if you do get sick, maybe not being sick as long. So there you go. If you have any more questions, come see me on my website, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies. And I will have a supply list of all these goodies for you on there, as well as others, and a shopping link as well. So we'll see you there. Bye-bye. So let's get started. Subscribe to the Susie Homesteader channel, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye.